Here we go. Ready. Okay. How would it feel to be unstoppable? Well, you're about to find out. We are about to be guided on a life changing journey by the only person in history to not only climb Mount Everest, but the highest mountain on every continent, ski to both poles, and complete the Hawaii Ironman. And all of this after two terminal cancers, a year long coma, a prognosis of 14 days. And if your jaw hasn't dropped yet, it will now. He did it all with one lung. Sean Swarner is a world record holder, keynote speaker, author, certified professional coach, Emmy nominated filmmaker, and so much more. He believes that everyone has a different story to tell, everyone has a different perspective, and we have all had our own very, very real struggles, no matter what your struggles are. And that's why Sean is focused on giving people the tools to achieve their own greatness and become unstoppable. What better person to inspire your unstoppable creative commute than Sean Swarner? Sean, hello.
Hey, that's a great intro. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, you are an incredible human being with an incredible story, and I can't wait to hear more about it. I feel like I'm looking at Superman in a baseball cap without the glasses.
I had my eyes fixed.
Yeah. I think the first question that comes to anyone's mind, the first question that came to my mind when I discovered you was how?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because as you mentioned in the intro, I give a lot of, well, I guess not in the past 11 months because of the vid. I usually give in-person keynote presentations, and I work with corporations around the world. Um, but it never fails. Somebody always comes up and they say pretty much the same thing. Like that's a great story, but how did you do it? Like, is there some secret sauce? I'm like, well, there is a secret sauce, and I think it's knowing what you value, and I think it's knowing what motivates you. Because we, like you, for example, you are where you are at this moment in time in life because of all the decisions, however mundane they might be, all those decisions you made in the past brought you to where you are here. And that's true for everybody on the planet. If you want to have a different future, you have to change something that you're doing. So if you pay attention to how you got here and where you want to go, you can make conscious choices based on your personal core values to get what you want.
That's so interesting, especially because I actually heard something the other day that I've been reflecting on for myself, which is what you're experiencing now is actually your past, because it's your past actions that have led you
Hmm.
to today. And that sounds very similar to what you're saying.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And if people pay attention to that, if you think about it for a second, because I often get the question, where would you be right now if you didn't have the cancers? From 13 to 17, 18 years old, I kind of look at life as a tree. So as you're growing, in your young ages, your parents are making the choices for you, the decisions for you. And then all of a sudden you get to make a choice that becomes a branch. The tree continues growing if this wouldn't have happened, or, you made that decision. So branch after branch, choice after choice, decision after decision, I could have been way over there on the other side of my office, but I ended up over here because of the cancers. You never know.
Oh, that's so true. I really love that visual to think about. I automatically, I like taking metaphors way too far. And I'm like, well, what happens if you hack off part of the tree? Then what happens?
Right.
Sometimes your tree does need trimming. So, okay, I'm going to take this too far. What woodland creatures are living in your tree?
Right.
Okay, so take us back a little bit. We know that you have accomplished, because of this series of things that I rattled off about you that are amazing. We know that you have accomplished so much. Can you take us back and just tell us a little bit about your life experience and what has led you to today?
Well, sure. I mean, I grew up in Midwest Ohio. So I was, I don't want to say your typical normal farm boy or farm kid, but I was. My backyard was a bean field or a cornfield, depending on the season. Um, I would go out there in the backyard and we would fold over the stalks of corn, to make little forts in the field. I'm sure the farmers didn't probably appreciate it too much, but being kids, we had a great time. We would TP the coach's house, back before toilet paper was rare to find on the shelves and it was worth their weight in gold. But we had a great time, and I was your normal kid, just trying to I was trying to not get caught when I got in trouble. I did something I knew I shouldn't be doing. Um, but my life took an early and different turn when I was only 13. And that's when I was diagnosed with advanced stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the doctors they didn't tell me the first time, but they told my parents, your firstborn son has 3 months to live. So that's the first hit. It smacked my whole family upside the head and said, "Hey, here's reality, and your son now has an expiration date."
Oh my goodness. I don't have children, but I cannot imagine getting that news as a family member, as a parent, as anybody, receiving that news about somebody that age. Like, what was that like for you at that age? I mean, did you feel it as deeply as those who'd lived a long life?
Well, actually, a great story. Um, I think I was about 3 months into the treatment, and at this point, I was 60 pounds overweight because of the prednisone, which is a steroid, and I was bald from head to toe. And I remember looking at my mom, and we were just looking out the window into the courtyard from my hospital room, and I remember looking at her and saying, "If I die, I've had a really good life." Like, what 13-year-old says that? So I think that really hit my mom too. But I think I look from that young age, I looked at life a little bit differently than most of my friends because I wasn't worried about being popular. I wasn't worried about um, so much of how I looked because I knew, like I said, I felt like a troll because I was bald from head to toe. I was just, in my eyes, I looked in the mirror and I saw nothing left of who I used to be.
Oh, that's so interesting. Do you think that would have been your response if this hadn't happened to you, or you think that's a result of what you've gone through?
I think it's definitely a result of what I've been through. Just because, at the developmental age of 13 to 18, when normally hormones are kicking in and you're growing hair in unusual places on your body, I was losing the hair all over my body. And while my friends were worried about chasing girls and collecting baseball cards and the quote unquote normal teen things, I was literally fighting for my life because there were nights I went to bed not knowing if I was going to wake up the next morning or not. So
That's
I think
fascinating because I think about the things that hold most of us adults back. The things that are stopping us are those things that really develop kind of in those teen years. Some of those, like fear of judgment, fear of what other people are thinking, they're developing during that time. Do you feel like there's something related there?
absolutely, because it boggles my mind, and I've never understood why someone cares more about why someone cares what someone else thinks of them more than what they think of themselves. And it could be a stranger. So if people are afraid to dance in public or karaoke or whatever it might be, something crazy like that, they're more afraid of being judged by a stranger than they are being judged by themselves. So that means that they care more about what that stranger thinks of them than what they think of themselves. I don't get that.
That hits me right in the gut. Nobody has ever phrased it that way, but it just, as somebody who has struggled with that for most of my life, really worrying about what other people think and going through this process of self-discovery, like rediscovering myself at the age of 38. I that hits me like right in the gut. That's so insightful. And for I don't know who needs to hear that, but definitely go and re-listen to what Sean just said, because that is some really, really powerful stuff.
Well, and I'm thinking out loud, but you're correlating adults now when they learned that in at a younger age, I wonder if Facebook, social media, Twitter, stuff like that, isn't the new high school. Because when you get on there in the morning, you're looking at what other people have. You want that, you want this, you want the other thing. What about what you want? What about what means most to you? Shouldn't that be more important than, some guy who's trying to tell you, oh, in 7 days I can give you $1 million and you can have a private jet, which is a load of garbage because that's never going to happen. It takes a long time to build that wealth. You should focus on what you have. Be grateful for what you have. Wake up every morning and consider it literally as a gift.
Yeah. I yes. Yes, but we don't. So many of us don't. Do we even know who we are? Do we even know what we want? We've been reacting to things outside of ourselves for so long, and social media has only amplified that if we don't know who we are, how the heck do we find that?
But I think you chose an appropriate word there. You said we're reacting to things. If you act and you're not reacting, then it's your choice. You're choosing how you want to act, because one of the greatest freedoms we have in the world is the freedom of choice. You can choose to react and you can choose to act in any situation, in any way you want to, in any situation. It's always up to you. You always have a choice. But if you don't, in going back to what you said too, I think most people are on autopilot. I think most people are on cruise control. I don't think they're making conscious decisions, especially now. So many decisions are made for us. And yes, breathing, blinking, licking our lips, swallowing. Of course, the brain kicks in to help do that. Otherwise, we'd be in stimulation overload. But the choices that we make on a daily basis, what time we get up, what we do the instant we get up, which most people, they either get on social media or their phone, check their email, whatever, before they go to the bathroom or while they're going to the bathroom, probably one of the two. But if you can pay attention to all those little things, you can change one thing that has the most control over you, and just stick to that until it becomes a habit. Replace a positive habit. Replace a negative habit with a positive habit, and just pick one and do it for a week and see what happens. So many people think, oh, I have to cut out sugar. I have to cut out pasta. I have to drink 8 glasses of water a day. I have to meditate for eight minutes, whatever, this. And by the end of the day, you're like, oh crap, I have to catch up on all these things. But just pick one simple one and make it a habit, and then move on. After that becomes a habit, pick a different habit.
Pick one that you enjoy. I think
Yeah.
sometimes we focus on these things that we know are going to make us miserable, or the things that we're trying to fix. And it's like, just pick one habit that's going to bring something positive to you and build a habit around that.
Absolutely. And so many people, when they're looking at change, they're so focused on what they could potentially lose, as opposed to focusing on everything they have to gain. A big one's relationships. I mean, how many times do you know of yourself, myself, other people, your friends, who are, and you can see it clear as day. You're like, why am I in this relationship? Because it's comfortable and because you're afraid of what you're going to lose, as opposed to, hey, look at everything I could potentially gain.
Oh man, that's something to think about. What are you more focused on, what you potentially could lose than what you could possibly gain?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's step back yet again and go this these words are so wise and we could all benefit from them. I mean, I'm speaking from this place of yes, 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 but I'm just as bad as the next person. So,
Oh, we
how
all
have
are.
yeah, right. But how have you learned these things? Is it because of that moment at 13? Have you learned them along the way? Did you learn them at the summit of Everest? Like, where did you learn this stuff?
So I think, you develop a different perspective on life. The first cancer, I was given 3 months to live. The second cancer, I was given 14 days to live as a 16-year-old. I was in a medically induced coma for a year, and I was read my last rites. So, like I said, I look at life a little bit differently, and I think it's based on all those little changes, all those little decisions that I've made throughout my life, focusing on what I want to accomplish, what I want to go after, not what I want to avoid. That was one of the biggest things, I think, that blew my mind, because I remember sitting on the bottom of the shower floor on my hands and knees, weeping, just pulling chunks of hair out of the drain so the water could go down. And it was also in that same moment when I realized that I had a choice. I could either fight for my life or give up and die. And I also thought to myself, okay, well, how would it turn out if I kept telling myself, don't die, don't die, as opposed to I wanted to live, focusing on what I wanted, not the avoidance of what I didn't want. And I think at a young age, I've really focused on that. And I've really honed my brain on looking at things from a different perspective. And I think it's being mindful of that and realizing that uh, you can take any situation, you can take anything and turn it around. So a perfect example, I was talking to a friend of mine on email and asked him how his day was, and he didn't write back, "Oh, it sucked," or "Oh, it was awful." He said it was, what was his exact words? He said it was less than ideal. So that it's still positive. And I think people don't pay attention to just the little words that we say, especially when we have in our internal dialogue, because we speak to ourselves more than anyone else throughout the day. And most of the time, that's probably negative. But if you can turn it around, oh, I can't do that. I'm not strong enough. I'm not smart enough. Whatever it might be, you can tell yourself, I'll try. I'll put in the effort. I'll do my best, and then move on from there. But just paying attention to those that little internal dialogue you have with yourself on a daily basis is one of the best places to begin.
Yeah, that is huge because like you said at the beginning, why are we talking so negatively to ourselves when we could be saying positive things? I I had a question about neuroplasticity. I saw
Uh-huh.
that this is something that you are into, and I want you to share what the heck is that? Sounds cool. And
It's a
how is that applicable to what we're talking about?
So neuroplasticity is a big word that makes me look smarter than I am. Um, it's actually the phenomenon that you can actually reprogram your brain. So if you look at the brain, it is divided into two hemispheres. We'll look at the right prefrontal cortex and the left prefrontal cortex. The right side is associated with more negativity, closed-mindedness, open-mindedness over here, positivity. So most people have more synaptic connections in their right prefrontal cortex. And you can actually train your brain to grow more synaptic connections to be more optimistic. So it's not just a fallacy where, oh, I'm going to, I'm going to positively think myself positive. That it happens. You actually believe it. There's scientific evidence showing that there are more synaptic connections in your left prefrontal cortex which is associated with being more open-minded, more creative, more optimistic. So just over time, you develop it over here or you develop it over here. And again, it's your choice. So I don't know if we didn't talk about it yet, but I have a program called the Summit Challenge, which helps people. The first session, the first module, is actually helping people through neuroplasticity to reprogram their brains. Because if you have a goal and you don't think it's possible and you have a negative attitude towards it, you're never going to get there. So you have to believe it's possible.
I love that you bring the science into it because I think it makes it I get it. I get it when somebody brings the science into it because it can be like, oh, think positive and that sounds great. But when you say, no, this is actually your brain, your
Right.
brain has been trained and we've been trained in this very negative, focusing on the negative. The news, all of our constructs around us are very focused on negative. That's what we've been fed. And because our brains actually like the negativity, like we actually, it's got a greater impact when we hear something negative. It impacts us, I think, 5 times more. I'm probably just pulling out numbers, but it really does impact our brain more. So then we get the news gives us more and more, and that's what we're trained.
Absolutely. And if as you're talking, I was thinking, again, how do you think it would have turned out if I kept telling myself going up Mount Everest, for example, don't fall, don't fall. You focus on what you want. Say somebody who's an entrepreneur, how's their mindset? Are they thinking they don't want to lose money, or are they thinking they want to make money? People who are in bad are looking for a relationship. They don't want to find the wrong person, or they want to find the right person.
It's
You know,
so true.
it's how you divide it up and how you see things.
Yeah, and you bring the things, your thoughts become actions, right?
Absolutely. And there's science proven behind that too, with vivid visualization.
Yeah, which is totally creativity. Well, something else I was thinking was that we've actually talked in the Creative Commute. We've had various topics. So we do a topic a week that we focus on in our community, and we have talked about how being optimistic actually does create more creative ideas. There's more space for those creative ideas to flourish. I don't know if you kind of touched on that, so I don't know if you had any thoughts in regard to that idea.
Well, I guess off the top of my head, it would probably be that you're just more optimistic because you can see more opportunities and you're opening your mind to that space.
Yeah, and the more connections your brain can make, then the more creative you can be. So I like that idea of thinking of it as opening up some space for ideas to flourish in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and people just need to focus on the idea and believe that is possible for everybody. You know, they say, "Oh, I could never do that." Well, you're probably right. Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Oh, that's true. You are coming in with the hard, real talk. So something that I saw, I was looking at your program, which sounds amazing, by the way. But it said, helping people to eliminate stress, fear, anxiety. Uh, we have so much of that, and we've talked about that. But how do you eliminate that if somebody's feeling that right now, which we are, and at least in the US right now we're feeling a lot of that? How do we eliminate that?
Well, a great way to eliminate some stress and fear is to understand that it's situational. So it's not a permanent condition. It's a feeling. It's how you feel right now. And it usually starts with two words. And that's when your brain starts going crazy, because when you say these two words, you give your brain permission to come up with whatever crazy scenario there is. What if? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? What if that happens? Oh my God, now I'm losing it, because you allowed your brain to go down that rabbit hole because you asked that question. But as soon as you realize that you're in control, don't let it take over you. You know, one of the things I do, and I did this with my cancers, for example, the cancer is a word, right? I'm not afraid of it. I'm afraid of what it could possibly do, yes. But hearing the word cancer shouldn't evoke an emotion in me, because it's just a word. It's my relationship and my association to it. So when somebody hears COVID, it shouldn't elicit me to go out there and buy a bunch of toilet paper and freak out, and because it's how I'm relating to it. So what I did was with my cancer, one day I sat in the bathroom, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I literally repeated the word 50 times over, just cancer, 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 cancer. And by the time I got to like 39 or 40, I was laughing. I was like, this is stupid. What am I doing? Like, it's a word. So that's one way you can be more in control. Another one is just being grounded. You know, people don't understand the true concept and understand the ability that mindfulness has. So if anyone's like, if you've never been mindful before, it's basically just bringing yourself in centering yourself. So a great way to do that is just take a deep breath, relax, and then pause and listen. What are just some sounds that you've never heard before?
You are such you are such a gift.
You know,
Oh, I didn't
that's
pause. I
mindfulness.
didn't pause. I was like ready to talk.
No, I was listening. I was like, all right, well, I hear my wife down in the kitchen. I hear you talking a little bit. I heard a horn over there, you know, but that's bringing yourself into the present moment. That's what mindfulness is. And it pulls you from the future and that what if question back to the here and now. Because if you're living in the past, if you're depressed, you're potentially living in the past. If you're anxious, you're potentially living in the future. But if you're being mindful and living in the present, what do you have to be afraid of? Now, granted, you might be in a burning building, then get out. You have a legitimate reason to be afraid. But for the most part, just take a couple deep breaths and just stop and listen. or stop and look at 4 or 5 things that you've never seen before.
What if you feel like you're in the middle of a climb? Like let's put ourselves in Sean's brain in the middle of climbing a mountain or running or doing the Ironman. What if somebody listening is like, I'm not in the past, I'm not in the future, I am in the now and it sucks. What is your advice to them?
Wow. A couple things. I joke around because I take a group up Kilimanjaro every year as a fundraiser for a cancer charity.
My husband wants to come with you.
Yeah, we'll
We
have yeah,
better.
we'll have to talk.
Okay.
Um, but one of them is I jokingly say, embrace the suck. You know it's going to suck. So if you have that mentality going into it, then it's not going to be as bad as it is in that you're going to experience it in the moment. So if you can prepare yourself for it, like Kilimanjaro, we wake up at 10 p.m. for summit night. We leave at around 11:30 midnight. We hike all the way through the night until 8 a.m. It's the coldest you'll ever experience in your entire life, but it's also the most beautiful sunrise and the most incredible feeling you get to the top. So which is a great segue into what I focus on myself. So if I'm on the mountain and I'm feeling miserable, like on Everest, I literally couldn't feel from my knees down, because it was so cold. I thought I was gonna lose my feet to frostbite. But I kept telling myself, the higher I go, the stronger I get. The higher I go, the stronger I get. As opposed to, don't stop, don't stop. The higher I go, the stronger I get. And then one of the biggest key components is picture yourself on top or whatever your goal is. And don't just use vivid visualization and see yourself from the third point of view. See it from your first person point of view. Add in your other 4 senses. What do you smell? What do you hear? But the biggest component is, how do you feel when you get there? And usually when I'm struggling in the middle of the night on Kilimanjaro, I start to get teary-eyed because I can picture myself on top and I know what it feels like getting other people up there. That's what gets people going. That's what keeps you going, understanding why you're doing it.
If you think about that, here's what's coming up for me as you're explaining this is that you're saying visualize the good feelings, like, and actually physically feel it. Well, we know what the bad feelings feel like. We know what that feels like. And so it's really easy, I think, for us to visualize what sucky feels like and what the
Absolutely.
bad feels like. So that's really easy. I think it is more challenging for us to envision what it could feel like. Do you have any tips for kind of getting into that mindset of like, what will it feel like when I get there?
I do actually, and it's challenge number 2 in the summit challenge. Actually, I've recorded 3 audios so people can download them, where I walk them through the 3 steps of vivid visualization, where they first they see it. What does it look like when you're getting up there? The second one is incorporating the other senses, and then the third one, which it attaches to your subconscious and your emotional state, is how does it feel? So walking yourself through there, and just over time understanding how that works, because I'm a huge believer in the mind-body connection. If you can see it and believe it, it'll happen.
Wow, your program sounds amazing, and we'll share a link to it at the end so that if anybody wants to go check it out and find out more about you and how you teach this, because it sounds like a really unique approach. Like we hear all these things about mindfulness and mantra and stuff, but coming from somebody who's like, I was a farm boy and look at what I've achieved, and I really want to teach you this. And what I think is so powerful, like, you're such a gift, Sean. You're such a gift that you not only experienced this and did this for yourself, but you reflected on it. And I think that's something you said earlier that really struck me, was like, wow, he really reflected on what has happened to him. That's what I was thinking was, wow, if you hadn't reflected, you never could have come up with these ways that you recognized work. You couldn't have applied it to yourself. And now you're turning around and gifting it. So I just think that's just beautiful.
Oh, I definitely appreciate that. And you're right. I didn't even reflect on the cancers and what I went through until after college, because in college I was Belushi from Animal House. I mean, I was the party animal, having a great time, swinging from the rafters, drinking too much beer, and just getting in trouble. But when I was in grad school and working towards my doctorate in psychology, that's when I looked back at my life and realized, hey, I am here because of everything I've done in the past. So I think you get to a point. A perfect example is Kilimanjaro. like I said, I've been up there 20 times, and it's not about getting to the top anymore. And I think with the program, with everything I do now, um, a great analogy would be like Christmas. You know, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, whether anybody out there celebrates Christmas, it doesn't matter. You'll get the analogy. You get to a point where you get to an age where you get more out of giving gifts to someone else as opposed to getting them yourself. So you get to an age where you're like, it means more to me to give something, like to give a gift to my wife, well, my mom, my dad, whatever. I get more out of that, seeing their faces, than me opening up a gift of, whatever it might be, even if I love it and it's fantastic. I think that's the same thing here with what I'm doing in my life. I get more out of giving, and I want to show people their own potential. So when I help other people become empowered and utilizing their personal core values, and I look down here because everybody who signs up gets one of these awesome things.
That's
And
awesome.
the front of it is actually a core values assessment. So you can find out what means most to you. But giving back to people, I think, is one of my personal values. And it means more to me to help somebody else than it does to help myself, even though I have to take care of myself before I help somebody else.
Yeah, I actually think that for the listeners who have heard me harp on various things, one of those is to give your freaking gifts to the world. Like we're holding on to things because we're so afraid of what other people will think, especially people who are creatives. We hold on to it and we could be gifting it. And if we think about it as a gift giving feels amazing.
Yeah, and why do people hold back? They'll say, another a great example is, I'm going to start a diet on Monday. I'm going to start exercising on Monday. What's wrong with today? What's wrong with putting a plan together right now? So many people with their gifts think to themselves, "Oh, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll get to it." Well, if not now, when?
Yep. You're really putting us in our place.
But everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own blocks, their own limitations, and their own. I call they're the gales, the gremlins, the associations, the interpretations, and the limiting beliefs that hold them back. And the worst one is the gremlin. It's a little voice on the side of your shoulder saying, "You can't do that. You're not smart enough to do that. You're not whatever." And that's when you have to realize, hey, listen, dude, I know you were there at one point in my life to help protect me, but we're moving forward together on this because we both want what's best for us.
You've got to put him in his place.
Yeah.
that little gremlin. What do you think is the number one thing that holds people back?
Fear, I think. And it could be fear of failure, fear of success, fear of um, how other people are going to view them, fear of anything. But just beyond that line of fear is where life really begins.
Yeah. Is that okay? So how do they overcome it? Is that belief that there's good stuff on the other side, or what is it that can help somebody to overcome the fear?
I think it's so people, like I said, we are where we are because of everything we've done in the past. And people are there's a reason. If you want to be here and you're here, your future self, your present self, your present self isn't the same as your future self, otherwise you'd be there right now. So the $1,000,000 question is looking at your core values, looking at who you are as a person, not like here I have the house, here I have the car, here I have the girl, here I have the guy, here I have whatever. That stuff doesn't make you happy. You make yourself happy. So if looking at who you are here and where you want to go, what's different about you personally, knowing you can't change other people, you can't change your situation. What's different about you personally that makes you up here? Are you happier? Are you more confident? Are you whatever? Hone in on what that difference is and then start fostering that change.
Yeah, really knowing yourself and what it is that lights you up, what you enjoy. I believe that is a path to so many good things for yourself, and really doing that reflection is incredibly valuable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Sean, you've done so much and you have shared all of these amazing nuggets. Thank you so much. What is next for you?
Well, like I said, I'm married. I recently got married, so I've heard that's more difficult than climbing Everest. Um, it was actually a guy in the audience once, and all of a sudden, because he asked me the same question, and I said, "Well, I got married," and he goes, "That's more difficult than climbing Everest." And the other guy goes, "Shut up, Joe." It's like, um, the challenge, like I said, the online program. But I think the next big adventure, well, the last 2 weeks of June and the last 2 weeks of July, taking another two groups up Kilimanjaro. But then if I can get the sponsorship and the support, January of 2022, I'm going to run 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days.
No way. Wow. Wow. And you have, because you've done an Ironman, you've obviously done a marathon before. Have you done multiple?
I have. I've done Boston, New York, a couple in California, but it's fun to get out and just be alive.
That's amazing. You're just you're just like, whatever, no big deal. Just gonna go run 7 marathons
But
on
it's
7 continents.
it's not, hey, I'm gonna go from here and tomorrow run a marathon. It's I'm
Right.
gonna go from here and run maybe 3 miles tomorrow, and then 3 miles for a little bit, and then bump it up 5 miles, and then up a little bit more. It's a progression of steps.
Right.
It's
And it
not
makes
just
me
boom.
think, if we can apply what you're saying here in our lives, like, look what it's done for you. Like, if we could just apply any little bit of it to our own lives, imagine how much your life could shift.
What you what did you say when you did the intro? Imagine being, that was your first words, right? Imagine being unstoppable.
Yes.
There you go. You imagine being unstoppable in your own life.
So it's that is beautiful. I can't imagine wrapping this conversation. We brought it full circle. That is perfect. I want to be unstoppable. I don't know about you listeners if you want to be unstoppable, but I kind of want to be Sean when I grow up. Except I don't want to
I
have to
wouldn't.
deal with like the cancers and stuff. I'll,
Right.
I'll just like jump straight to amazing. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. Where can people find you best?
Best, they can go to seanswarner.com, but they can also reach me by going to thesummitchallenge.com.
Great. It's wonderful. And it's a wonderful page that really outlines exactly what you can get out of joining his program. I highly suggest checking it out. Thank you, Sean. Any parting words?
I'm just very grateful to have the opportunity to talk and share my story. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh boy. Was Sean great or what? I just love his story, and I can't imagine myself doing almost any one of those things. I do think that I could climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and that's on my husband's bucket list. So I think I'm going to have to. There's so many things. 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. Like, he just looks like a regular guy. I think that that's something that we think sometimes people who do these things that seem outside of what a human could achieve aren't just normal people, but he's just a normal person who has applied these ideas in a way that has created superhuman results. And I just think it's really cool. I took so many notes that I showed him at the end. My notebook is completely covered in scribbles because I was just like, this is all so good. So I want to share the takeaways from this episode. The first is one of the first things you say: care more about what yourself thinks than what you care about others. Well, that was weird. The first is one of the first things he said: care more about what yourself thinks than what others think. So important. I need that reminder. The next is act, don't react. Are you experiencing life, or are you just reacting to things that you see? The next is make yourself happy. Why not? You'll end up overcoming so much more than you think when you focus on making yourself happy. And next, think about what you want, not what you want to avoid. Are you focused on loss, or are you focused on gain? And that leads into the next one, which is embrace the suck, but focus on the positive. I liked his mantra of the higher I go, the stronger I get. And the fact that if you tell yourself these positive things, that's where your body will end up going, where your mind goes, because you can grow your optimism. He told us about your brain and how you can actually grow the optimistic side of your brain. And finally, give your gifts. Give your gifts to the world. You have such amazing things to share with others. Give them to the world. I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you got as much out of it as I did. I feel so inspired. I feel like I could conquer anything. Okay, maybe not 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days, but I feel like I could conquer a lot. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share the podcast with a friend and leave a review. I would love to hear what you think. I will see you next time. Keep making the magic you were born to create. Bye.